Morning, everyone. Morning. Yes, it's getting a little chilly nowadays, so I had to bring out the sweater here. Yeah, so last time we were at the Providence of Restoration, and we ended on, Isaac inheriting the faith of Abraham. And, to get that full presentation, I think you have to go back and watch the previous one. But really summarizing it very briefly, Abraham, he was supposed to succeed in the first offering. Oh, sorry, I forgot to pray to begin. I forgot. I'm sorry about that. Yes, no, someone reminded me. Okay, let me pray to begin. I'm sorry about that. Yes. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us today, that we can all gather together here and study more in depth your word and your providence of restoration that you have enacted throughout history. Father, we know that you have worked tirelessly throughout the providence to get where you are right now, where we are right now, where the culmination of history and the last days have been fulfilled through a true Father and is currently being fulfilled right now as true Father sits on the throne. Thank you, Father. I ask that you can bless this small presentation or lecture or meeting, whatever you want to call it, that I, as a lecturer, can disappear and truly let your word and your principle and your providence of restoration shine, Father. Thank you, and I ask that you can bless this day once again. Not only this presentation, but also, I believe Pastor Regis is going to give the sermon today. So I ask that you can bless his sermon and guide each and every one of us to be more conformed to your image, more in line with your will and your providence. Father, I want to give you all the praise, glory, and victory today, and I pray this in the name of the three kingships. I'm an Aju. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry about that. That's the first time I forgot about the beginning. Oh, Mr. Kyle is giving the sermon. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I guess I kind of got derailed from last week. Last week we didn't pray to begin because I prayed at the end when we were at the Freedom Festival. But anyways, okay. Thank you very much. That was incredible, right? True Father's Hungnam chorus. But anyways, let's not get derailed here. But yeah, like the Ongmanse tradition comes from there. That was incredible. Yeah, when I found that eyewitness source and the Queen actually recommended it, yeah, I was shocked. Like this guy is a non-unification. He's not a Christian, but he's testifying to True Father in that prison. But let's not get derailed here. If people are interested, you can watch the Hungnam presentation that I did in PA. But let's go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes. So last week we talked, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, we talked about how Abraham had to maintain, faith, and then he had to, through his sons, lay down the foundation of substance. Right? And Abraham was supposed to do that, the foundation of faith, when he was to cut the heifer, goat/ram, and the pigeon and dove in half, right? But because he did not do that, right, God put him into a deep slumber, and it's because of that, I think in Genesis 15, that whole narrative happens, that the Israelites are cursed for 400 years in slavery. That is the exact reason, because Abraham could not offer that foundation of faith in that circumstance. So therefore, a greater indemnity condition had to be made. That's why we get the famous narrative of Abraham getting commanded to sacrifice his son, the Isaac. Literally his miracle child, literally. Excuse me. And just before Abraham raises a knife and plunges it into Isaac, God stops him. And he says that, now I know that you will be faithful to me, right? And it is in that narrative that not only Abraham established the foundation of faith, but also Isaac. Because we know from the narrative that Isaac, he was carrying wood up a mountain. That's pretty hard. That's not something like a toddler can do. He knew what Abraham was kind of doing because he asked, like, where is the sacrifice here, right? He actually, was not someone of a very young age. He's at least a teenager, right? At least. He knows something that is going on. But Isaac did not fight back, even though, a teenager can easily overpower like 100-year-old man. Right? He doesn't even have to, you don't have to run, he just walks away, right? But through that, Abraham and Isaac's heart became one. And thereby, Isaac could inherit the foundation of faith that Abraham laid. And therefore, he could stand as the next providential figure, right? Originally, Abraham was supposed to lay the foundation of faith through the dividing of the heifer, goat/ram, and dove/pigeon. But because that did not happen, the providence from Isaac and Ishmael, right? They were supposed to unite before, in the first primary providence. But because of Abraham's failure to cut the doves in half, that's why Isaac had to become the new central figure. Thereby, Jacob and Esau, Isaac's sons, carrying on the providence of restoration. Yes. So that's where we kind of ended this success of offering of Isaac. And therefore, the providence of restoration in Abraham's family is now being carried on through Isaac. Isaac's demonstration of trust in Abraham also restored the failure of Ham, who had failed to unite with the heart of his father Noah, who was totally faithful to God. So again, Isaac now stands as the providential figure. Therefore, the foundation of substance needs to be laid with Jacob and Esau. And this is where we see the whole narrative of, Jacob buying the birthright, him being exiled to 21 years in Haran, and these different narratives here. And again, the foundation of substance, what it means, again, please watch the previous presentation because we explained the concept a lot more in depth. And the foundation of substance, foundation of faith, it's not, I said this last time too, but it's not words that are found in the Bible, right? But it reflects the concepts found in the Bible, just like the doctrine of the Trinity, or the Bible itself is not found in the Bible, right? But it reflects the concepts of the Bible, and actually that's greater, right? That's greater. If this is a consistent pattern that happens over and over again, and these labels are explaining that kind of pattern. Yes. So foundation of substance just means that the Cain figure, or the person on Lucifer's side, does what Lucifer could not do at the fall, and unites with God's figure, or Jacob, in this case. And therefore, it reverses the fall. It reverses the conditions of the fall, where Lucifer had to come under Adam and Eve, but he could not. Right? He cannot do that, and therefore the four fallen natures take place. So the person in Lucifer's side needs to do what Lucifer could not do. And that doesn't mean that God does not love each of them equally. But in the eyes of providence, he has to see them as God's side and Lucifer's side, right? To reverse this whole fall that takes place. To complete the establishment of the foundation for the Messiah and Isaac's family, the foundation of substance had to be laid next. For this purpose, Isaac's sons, Esau and Jacob, had to be placed in the divided positions of Cain and Abel, respectively. By making the substantial offering, they were responsible to fulfill the indemnity condition to remove the fallen nature and lay the foundation of substance. Esau, the elder brother, had to love his younger brother Jacob, seeing him from God's viewpoint and overcoming his fallen nature. And Esau, he's the elder brother, can't speak. He's the elder brother because Lucifer was created before Adam, right? So it parallels the fall. God is, again, through Jacob and Esau, but first through Cain and Abel, and then Ham and Shem. God is attempting to recreate the scenario of the fall to try to reverse this whole thing, right? So he's setting providential positions in place and people in place to try to reverse the original sin that happened in the Garden of Eden. So that's why Esau, the elder brother, has to love his younger brother Jacob, and thereby establishing the foundation of substance. And I clarified this last time too, and this really must be clear, that it's not only Cain that has the portion of responsibility, right? Jacob also has portion of responsibility. Jacob is not perfect either, right? Nor is Cain, but yes, Esau, nor is Esau, but both have a portion of responsibility to do. If Jacob becomes prideful or does not humble himself, then, he's just going to repeat the same failure. Cain is going to kill Abel, right? But at the same time, Cain has to have patience, right? But it's not only Cain or Esau or whatever Cain figure that has a portion of responsibility. It's also Jacob that has a portion of responsibility, right? Or the Abel figure. And, that was not very clarified previously, right? And that's why, people abuse this Cain and Abel relationship, not knowing that, Abel also has a portion of responsibility. It's not only Cain that has to sacrifice everything, right? Abel also must maintain that vertical connection to God first, but he has to humble himself, right, to Cain. Can't be gloating around, or he's going to end up like Joseph, who the elder brother sold him into slavery, right? So there is a portion of responsibility for both figures, not only Cain, both Cain and Abel. Yes. Okay, yes, so this is the first narrative that takes place regarding Jacob and Esau. And just like we covered last time in the first presentation also, there's many confusing narratives that take place in especially the book of Genesis. Like, why is God cursing Abraham's descendants to suffer 400 years of slavery? What is this whole narrative about, Jacob stealing? Well, he's not stealing. He buying the birthright. Or what is the whole narrative of when, I believe it's Joseph blessing his two sons. He crosses his arms, right? Why is that? There's all these different narratives, especially in the book of Genesis, that is very confusing. But I think this providence of restoration, what it really does, what True Father has really done, has clarified what providence has been taking place throughout the background, right? The secrets of the Bible, the greater narrative that is taking place throughout this entire story. And this is also another example of this, right? This narrative where, I guess we'll read. Once when Jacob was boiling pottage, Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red pottage, for I am famished." Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. So traditionally, the birthright, which was the right of inheritance and privilege, was given to the elder son in the family. Esau was Jacob's older brother, and therefore logically expected that he would receive the birthright from Isaac. Later, when Isaac was near death, Jacob tricked his blind father, Isaac, into giving him his blessing by pretending to be Esau. So this is the whole narrative of, Rebekah basically persuading Jacob, you have to do this. You have to do this. And he covers himself, or is it the neck, right? He covers himself with, goat hair or something like that. And he wears, or is it arms? Yeah. And then he wears the cloak, of Esau. And Rebekah prepares Isaac's favorite food. So that's the whole narrative there. And traditionally, this whole narrative, this one, and also Rebekah's deception of Isaac, it's seen very negatively in traditional Christianity, right? New Testament age Christianity. But if we see this greater narrative that is taking place of the foundation of faith and foundation of substance, we can really see that, no, it is actually God working in his providence. And I want to read this this narrative that take place.
How did the Jews see that?
Just one second. Sorry. Let me read this first. Well, the Jews basically, I think, I don't really know, but I think they see it, similarly as New Testament age Christianity. Just one second, please. Yeah, so this is the whole narrative here. Genesis 27. Yeah, NIV is okay. So yeah, this is where Rebekah is deceiving Isaac. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out into the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." So Isaac is trying to bless Esau, yeah. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out into the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father.'" Right? And this is the whole narrative of of Esau or Isaac. No, sorry. There's so many names that is in this narrative. Jacob stealing the birthright from Esau. But it is actually, when we see the narrative, it's actually Rebekah that urges him on. And Rebekah is remembering the prophecy that was given to her when when Esau and Jacob were in her womb. Right? 2 nations are toiling in your womb, and the older shall serve the younger. So she's remembering this prophecy from however many years ago and trying to actualize it here. So that's why Jacob didn't want to do this. It's Rebekah that is urging him on, right? Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother. So if we just see just above, right, just the narrative that we just read, it's Rebekah. Rebekah said to her son Jacob. So Jacob is not the one initiating here. He doesn't want to take any part of this, but it's Rebekah that is kind of urging Jacob on, right? So Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse upon myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall upon me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So this is, and the rest of it is, Jacob tricking Isaac. But as we see, it's Rebekah that started this whole thing. It's Rebekah. And, New Testament age Christianity has seen this whole narrative, Rebekah and Jacob, basically tricking Isaac and Esau, as a very negative thing. But if we remember, Rebekah is actually just trying to fulfill the prophecy that was given when they were in their womb, right? When they were in her womb. And we see that, "My son, let the curse fall upon me." Jacob is trying to avoid this. But Rebekah is basically saying, whatever downside that comes from this, let it all come upon me, right?
Did she know he bought the birthright already?
I don't know. That doesn't come out in the narrative, right? But when we see the Bible, right, there is no curse that ever befell Rebekah. She was never cursed. But she was just remembering the prophecy that was first given to her. So she was maintaining the faith that she first received from God. and then actualizing it however many years later here. And even in the, so let me return back to the PowerPoint here.
Jacob's just getting what he's owed.
Yeah. And people say, where is my mouse? Okay, there you go. Yeah, people say, what is it? That Jacob basically stole the birthright here, right? But Jacob didn't steal it. He bought it. He bought it for a price. He did not steal the birthright. Esau willingly gave it to him, right? So he's not first of all, he's not a stealer or a robber or a thief. He bought the birthright from Esau, albeit at a very small price, but he did not deceive anyone. He bought it at a very discounted deal, I guess.
Why did he have the inclination to steal his birthright, or to buy his birthright? Sorry.
Yeah, that doesn't come out in the Bible, but I guess God somehow led Jacob in his life to have that desire. He doesn't know the providence of restoration, right? But I guess God somehow led him to all of the circumstances in his early life to lead up to that moment. But this is a very strange narrative that is here in the Bible. It's just there, and we don't really know why. So again, Jacob didn't do anything to deceive Esau. Rather, he bought it. And later, Rebekah, when she is basically deceiving Isaac, she is actually fulfilling the original prophecy that was given to her. And no curse ever befell Rebekah, as we see later on. So in this way, Jacob received the promise of the birthright from Esau, as well as the blessing from his father. From a humanistic perspective, what Jacob did to receive the birthright may seem very morally questionable. However, God's plan was for Jacob to receive the birthright from Isaac and become the ancestor of the Jewish people. So before Esau and Jacob could make the substantial offering, Jacob first had to fulfill the indemnity condition to restore the position of Abel. So first, he has to inherit that same foundation of faith from Isaac, right? Or he has to lay down his own foundation of faith. So how did he accomplish this? So first, in the fight to restore the birthright on the individual level, birthright, the bread and lentils, and Isaac blessing Jacob. And again, this reflects the whole story of Cain and Abel. So God is recreating the similar circumstances for the fall to be reversed. So, where were we? Jacob cleverly obtained it from Esau, who was willing to exchange it for some bread and a pottage of lentils. Second, because Esau wanted to kill Jacob for taking the birthright and blessing, Jacob went to work for his uncle Laban in Haran, which represented the satanic world. After suffering through 21 years of hard labor and mistreatment, he restored the birthright by gaining family and wealth as his due inheritance. So he restored birthright with family and wealth. So he laid down basically the family level of Abel's position. Third, Jacob triumphed in wrestling with an angel at the ford of Jabbok while returning home, thereby restoring dominion over the angel. And True Father said that this is a really important part, wrestling with the angel, that you should never leave that out, because this is where he basically gets the right from the Lucifer figure. Because Lucifer, he's obviously an angel, right? He's a cherub, which just means a first-ranking angel or an anointed cherub, right? But a cherub is just one type or one rank of an angel. So Lucifer, is an angel. And the seraphim, he's a seraphim because a cherub just represents a rank, while a seraphim represents what type of angel you are, right? So people get that confused often, but they can be all three, right? Lucifer is all three. He's an angel, first of all. He's a cherub because that just reflects a rank or something. Cherub means an angel that guards the throne room of God, right? But a seraphim means that it's a type of angel. But anyways, the diverging here. But because Lucifer had dominion over, humanity because of the fall, an angel standing in the position of Lucifer had to wrestle with Jacob. And thereby, when Jacob did not let go, even though his, thigh was or hip or hip bone was broken, he still persevered on. That's where he gains the name Israel, right? Victory, or in some translations, right? And that's where the name Israel comes from. It's given by the Lucifer figure here. So Lucifer is basically admitting that that he has succeeded in that dominion over the angel. And that is when he completes his foundation of faith completely. Right? In this way, Jacob restored through indemnity the position of Abel. And upon this successful foundation of faith established by Jacob, the foundation of substance now needs to be established for the foundation for the Messiah to be completed. So again, as we saw last time, the foundation of faith needs to be laid, and then the foundation of substance. And the reason why it's important is because the Messiah then can come, right? Upon that foundation of faith and substance to reverse the course of the fall. In Genesis chapter 33, we read the beautiful story of the reunion of Jacob and Esau. Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. Oh, I forgot to mention just before, that Rachel, when they are fleeing Haran, right? So Jacob, he leaves suddenly from Haran and basically leaves Laban hanging. Laban finds out on the next morning that they are all gone, right? Some of his flock, Jacob, Leah and Rachel, the 2 female servants, he finds out next morning. But Rachel, in this whole narrative, Rachel actually takes the idols of Laban, right? So she steals the idols, and that is actually one of the core reasons why Laban is running after them, trying to find them. So that's why he goes. And the first question he asks are, why did you take my idols? That's the first question he asks to his daughters, Jacob, and the rest of the crew. So that was the main motivator. But I was asking Reverend Yu about this. This is why I brought this up. That he was pointing out that when, Rachel stole Laban's idols, she sat on top of them on the horse. Or whatever donkey that they rode, or camel, whatever. She sat on top of the idols. And that, he was saying that represents the reversal of the fall also. So we saw how, Abraham, Sarah, and Abimelech, Abraham, Sarah, and Pharaoh, and then Isaac too, Rebekah, and Abimelech, and so on and so forth. The narrative goes on and on. Tamar, David, although he didn't sin, and so on and so forth. But Rebekah, by doing this and sitting on top of the idols, basically represented that whole process again. So I thought that was really interesting. I never heard of that before, but that's what he was saying. So I just wanted to bring that up. I guess it does need more thought through it. We have to think about it more. But that's what he was saying, which I thought was very interesting. So I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. Yes. Yeah, that was my first time hearing about it too. So I just wanted to kind of share that. But where were we? He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. Who are these with you? Jacob answered, they are the children God has graciously gifted your servant. Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all, Joseph and Rachel. Esau asked, what's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met? To find favor in your eyes, my lord. But Esau said, I have already plenty. I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. No, please, said Jacob, if I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all that I need. And because Jacob insisted it, Esau accepted it. So we see here, again, this principle how both Cain and Abel has a portion of responsibility here. And we find this very clearly throughout this narrative. If Jacob had not done this thing, Esau was apparently coming with 400 people to slaughter, whatever he had, right? Jacob. But through this humbling self, Esau's heart was changed. And therefore, Esau could overcome his fallen nature and unite with the Abel figure, who is Jacob, thereby establishing the foundation of substance. And that means, again, that the Messiah has the potential of coming now, right? And what we really see in the providence of restoration whole narrative is that, yes, when Jesus came, that was a really good time to come. But there were way better times to come beforehand, right? So for instance, when right after the fall, through Cain and Abel, if Jesus came then, or the Messiah came then, the world would be instantly restored. And that's what God was trying to do through Cain and Abel, right? Again, after the flood where, there's not a lot of people left, right, in that region, especially. But whether global flood or local flood. But anyways, there's not a lot of people there. And that means that God can quickly restore the entire world. Through, if the Ham and Shem united, thereby laying down the foundation for the Messiah, the world will be very quickly restored, right? Or in Solomon's day, where not every road led to Rome, but Israel was the superpower within that region, and every road led to Israel at that point, right? So yes, Jesus coming at the time of the Roman Empire, that is a really good time to come, but it was not the best time to come. And that's what the providence of restoration really reflects, that God would want to restore his children as soon as possible. If you see a burning building outside and your children are inside, you would try to rescue them as soon as possible, not when the problems get worse and worse and worse, right? While it's still an ember, you would try to save them. That's what he was trying to do with Cain and Abel, with Noah's family. And this is what the providence of restoration really reflects, that God would want to save his children as soon as possible. And he tried, right? But there is the human portion of responsibility that is the critical dividing factor, right? I shared this analogy multiple times, but it's like Google Maps, where the destination doesn't change. But because of our decision, our turning away from God, we don't go the highway, the fastest route. We always diverge. And therefore, what should have took only 20 minutes, right, to get to destination A, now it takes an hour to get there, right? And if you diverge again from that best route, then now it takes 4 hours to get there, right? And so on and so forth. That's why the providence is always prolonged, not because the destination, we're going to get there eventually, okay? God is eventually going to win. Satan cannot win. He is a loser from the very beginning, right? He cannot win. But he knows that he can delay the providence for as long as possible. And that's what he's doing. He's just putting blockades in place. Therefore, we have to diverge, or he plants someone inside the car, and he swerves the car, and therefore, the drive is prolonged, or something like that. I don't know. But the destination does not change. But because of providential figures' mistakes, that is why the providence is extended. Yes. Yeah, I thought that was a really good analogy about the Google Maps. Yeah. But anyways, it's a analogy that we can all relate to, right? I was giving the analogy of like the general beforehand, which is a good analogy, I think, too, and that's not from me either, and the Google Maps is not from me. But I thought the Google Maps, it's one that we can all relate. We all use Google Maps or whatever app map site you use. And that, I think, really reflects God's providence, right? The destination does not change. God will eventually win, right? We will eventually get there. But if there's multiple mistakes along the way, then the destination, it'll take longer and longer and longer to get to that same destination.
There should be a lose signal.
Yes, yes, right. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that analogy here. But this is where the foundation of substance was laid. And therefore, the Messiah could now come. But why didn't the Messiah come? So in order to ease the anger of the older brother whose birthright and blessing had been taken, Jacob also had to humble himself to his older brother. And thereby, the foundation of substance was restored, right? Esau did what Lucifer could not do at the fall. Thereby uniting with Jacob, Jacob finds favor in Esau's eyes. The indemnity condition is reversed because, as I explained previously, what Principal explains, is that, Adam, this was supposed to be the original order of creation, where Adam and all of humanity, by extension, was to rule over the angelic realm and the entirety of creation. Right? Be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the entire creation. That includes angels. As we see Paul later on says, do you not know that you are to judge the angels? Right? And Hebrews also mentions that angels are ministering spirits for those who are to inherit salvation in chapter 12, verse 1. But we see that this was the original ideal of creation, that humanity has dominion over the angels. But because of the fall, angels now had the dominion over humanity. I guess they were in the midway position, but Satan had a claim over humanity, right? God is the creator of humanity, so he has a claim. But Satan, because of the fall, now has a claim upon humanity as well. So this fallen condition needs to be reversed again. So this is why the Adam figure, and Jacob is that Adam figure in this case, he is standing in the position of Adam, of the dead Adam. And that is why he has to reverse this course over the angelic realm, and therefore lay the foundation of substance. So this is the whole narrative of why the foundation of faith, the foundation of substance, and how it reflects the biblical narrative, especially here in the successful establishment of the foundation of substance. Yeah, so this is really incredible. And this is what True Father has really revealed, that God was working all throughout providential history. Even when, Jacob's actions seemed very strange, like him, buying the birthright, and Rebekah encouraging Jacob to deceive his father Isaac, and Abraham being cursed to 400 years of slavery, or his descendants, and these different narratives that are taking place. Yeah. So Jacob was able to bring Esau, who was in the Cain position, to surrender naturally through love. Their victory restored through indemnity horizontally in one family, the long vertical course of history in which God had been working to restore the foundation of substance. As we saw last time, the providence was extended to 3 generations, right? Because Abraham was the third person in the whole providence. And because Adam and Eve fell on the top of the growth stage, God still has a claim over the completion stage. So that's why he has a claim over the number 3. I was asking this to Reverend Yu, like, why does God have a claim to number 3, right? But he was explaining that like that. So that is why on the third try, Abraham, it could be extended to 3 generations. Okay, yes. So since the fall of man, God has always worked to guide human beings to establish conditions to receive the Messiah, because he wants to bring his children home to him. There's always a center in God's providence of restoration, the able position, representing the position of Adam. Again, this whole, the world that we live in, it's a battle between 2 lineages, right? As we see in the fall of man. It's a lineage of God and the lineage of Satan, right? Battling for dominion. Whereas God's dominion is a shepherdly dominion. It's the poimaino reign that the king has really emphasized, right? Whereas Satan's dominion, it's bringing the kingdom of hell on earth, right? So it's a very different type of dominion. It's not the same type of dominion, right? But yeah. I kind of explained this already, so let's go on to the next slide. That, it has to be reversed, right? So at last, the foundation for the Messiah was established on the family level. However, by Abraham's time, fallen people had already built up satanic nations, which could easily overpower Abraham's family. Excuse me, sorry. This was different from the time of Adam or the time of Noah, when God would have only needed to restore one family and lineage. So it would have been way better if they would have succeeded, Adam or Cain and Abel, and Noah and his family. There's so few people to restore, and God would want to restore his children as fast as possible, right? He doesn't want the world of sin. Therefore, if he can send the Messiah from the very beginning, that would solve a lot of problems that we have today, right? A lot of the evils that we see are because of moral evils that we human beings enact upon one another, right? And if the Messiah was there from the very beginning, then he could have restored everything, right? Yeah. So in the time of Abraham's family, the Messiah could not safely come on just the family level foundation. A foundation of a God-centered sovereign nation was needed to cope with the nations of the satanic world. Hence, Jacob's family entered Egypt centering on Joseph, who had been sold into slavery by his brothers. Yet Joseph rose to the position of the governor of Egypt, the Pharaoh's right-hand man. While the Jewish people went through a course of 400 years of indemnity as slaves, they can multiply Jacob's lineage and build the national foundation for the Messiah. So because, again, Jacob had succeeded, but the satanic nations were too huge at that point. And also, there was the condition of indemnity that had to take place because of Abraham's failure, the 400 years, right? God is not just going to revoke that, right? He has already set that condition into place. And God is not doing that to be vindictive or something. He's actually trying to restore the conditions that were claimed by Satan, right? So he's not doing this to, subject the people into suffering and torture. He doesn't want to do that. The original course was that they don't go through 400 years of slavery, right? If Abraham had succeeded, then they would have not gone into 400 years in Egypt. But because God's desire and will, primary will, was frustrated, that is why the providence had to be extended, right? The Messiah could have come, but that condition still had to take place of the 400 years.
So the Noah to Abraham was 400 years, right?
Okay, I think that's in principle, yeah. But that's why the Messiah could not come at that exact moment. So, hence Jacob's family entered Egypt. Oh, okay, I wrote that. Yes, let's go on the next slide. Okay, so this slide, anyways, I wish someone else could do this slide, but okay, anyways. 3 generations seen as one. Before Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, God spoke to him. In Exodus 3:6, we read, "Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. God defined, and I'm not the creator of the slide, just FYI, okay? But anyways, where were we? God defined himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, indicating the providential significance of the victory achieved in this family. Jacob, as the central figure who laid the foundation for the Messiah in Isaac's family, was responsible to shoulder Abraham's sin. The providence centering on Isaac was prolonged to the providence centering on Jacob. So Jacob had to inherit the same foundation of faith that Isaac laid. Just as Isaac was supposed to inherit Abraham's faith, foundation of faith, Jacob is to do the same thing. He has to inherit the foundation of faith that Isaac laid. Remember, that's what Ham could not do. He did not inherit the faith that Noah had established, right? And thereby, the foundation of substance can never even get started because Ham did not inherit that same foundation of faith. So that's why Jacob has to do the same. And he did that through the 21 years in Haran and gaining the birthright and wrestling the angel. where were we? Jacob, as a central figure who laid the foundation for the Messiah in Isaac's family, was responsible to shoulder Abraham's sin. The providence centering on Isaac was prolonged into the providence centering on Jacob. Jacob was also responsible to embark upon an indemnity course to realize on the national level the will which had been originally entrusted to Isaac. Excuse me. Therefore, as was the case with Abraham and Isaac, God regarded Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the same person with respect to his will, even though they were three different individuals. So in regard to the will of God, they are seen as one person, right? Whereas, obviously, they're different people, right? Yeah, so in the will of God, they are seen as one people. Therefore, as we go on in the Old Testament narrative, from Jacob's victory throughout the entire biblical narrative, God identifies himself as the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. So that represents the victory that took place through that family, right? Through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes. So the model course successfully established by Jacob can later be seen in the courses of Moses and even Jesus. Jacob, in the position of Abel, won back the birthright of the firstborn son. Esau, who was in the position of Cain, was therefore in the position of the fallen archangel. Jacob's victory represented Adam restoring dominion over the archangel. Because Jacob, again, he's standing in the position of the dead Adam. Jacob triumphed as an individual in his struggle with Esau to win the birthright. He won the birthright as a family in Haran. He restored dominion over the angel while wrestling, and thereby gained the name Israel. That's where he gained the name Israel. And he fulfilled the indemnity condition to remove the fallen nature, uniting with Esau. Yes. So God's work in history, and we see Jacob's course on the family level being expanded to Moses and Jesus. And I think principle lays out like 7 or 8 parallels, something around that. That there's parallels between Jacob's course, Moses' course, and Jesus' course. For example, the 12 disciples, right? 12 disciples, 12 tribes, 12 sons, 70 kinsmen. I forgot the exact term for Moses, was 70-something. And Jesus, the 70 other disciples, right? He had 12 core, but 70 disciples on the side. And so on and so forth. DP gives 7 or 8 examples regarding this. God's work in history, starting from the time of Jacob's victory, was to expand the foundation for the Messiah to the national level. Only after establishing a sovereign nation could Jesus be born among the descendants of Jacob. If Jesus could have been welcomed by the Jewish people in the small nation of Israel, the kingdom would have started there. Just like Jesus said that the kingdom is like the mustard seed. It's the smallest seed in all of the world. And I know, scientifically it's not true, but Jesus is, giving a parable to illustrate that. But just as it starts as a mustard seed, but grows into the tree that overshadows every tree, so too the kingdom of God, when it starts, it's small as a mustard seed. But when it blooms, it provides shadow and prosperity and freedom for all individuals under that tree, right? Just as Jesus said. If Jesus could have been welcomed by the people of Israel, the kingdom would have started there and spread to the worldwide level. Jesus constantly preached about the establishment of the kingdom and asked us to pray every single day for it to be established on earth. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we saw so many different lines of evidence that Jesus wanted the kingdom to come at the time of the first century. He said that, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. That means that, the harvest is plentiful. It can come then, right? But because of a labor shortage, that's why that could not take place. The kingdom of God will be taken away from you. That means it was supposed to be theirs, and given to a people producing its fruits in Matthew 21:43. Right? it will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruit. It was supposed to come to Israel in the first century, but it did not because of their faithlessness. Why would Jesus be weeping over Jerusalem, saying that I would have longed to gather you as a hen gathers a brood, but yet you were not willing? Not because God's providence was that, Jesus was supposed to be crucified. Yes, it was a secondary providence, but not that God's will was that primary providence, right? Yet you were not willing. Not that God was not willing. Israel was the one not willing. And that's why Jesus pronounces a curse upon Israel. Why would he pronounce a curse on the very nation that God has brought up for, 2,000 years? There's no point for God to be doing that if he's just going to destroy it later on, if that was the primary plan, right? And we went to great detail about the different lines of evidence. Jesus commanding faith in Israel. That means he actually desires faith, right? He's not desiring faithlessness for him to somehow be crucified later on. Doesn't make any sense, right? He said, the work of God is this, that you believe in the one whom he has sent, whom God has sent, in John 6, 28 through 29, right? If the Israelites did have faith, then he wouldn't have been crucified. Hello? He wouldn't have been crucified. And that means that the will of God, just like Jesus said, and but this point I thought was a really good point, that Jesus' will and God's will is the same thing. Because, so if we can discern what Jesus' will is, then we can discern what God's will is too. I thought this was a really good point. But anyways, so we can see Jesus' desire very clearly. And the Old Testament entire prophecies, dozens and dozens of prophecies. If we look at the Old Testament honestly and objectively, and this is what the Jews do, or I guess not the entirety, but they still hold on to the same messianic expectation because it is so prevalent throughout the Old Testament. Yes, there's prophecies about the suffering servant, and we discussed that in depth in the Mission of the Messiah series, where it's dual prophecy. Yes, there's absolutely prophecies of the Messiah coming to suffer, but that is definitely not the primary providence as attested to by dozens and dozens of Old Testament prophecy. And that is the same, objection that the Jewish people have to Christianity today, that the Messiah simply did not fulfill the vast majority of messianic prophecy. And that is just objectively true. Just objectively true. That's why New Testament age Christianity says that in the second coming he'll fulfill the vast majority. But the Jews respond, there is no second coming in the Bible, right? Anyways, but so there's multiple lines of evidence indicating that Jesus was not supposed to die. And this whole providence of restoration that we have gone through, and God has toiled throughout centuries and thousands of years, it's to send Messiah. It's to send the Messiah. Ultimately, so that the people can receive the Messiah and fulfill their own portion of responsibility and, unite with him and thereby fulfilling God's ideal of creation, right? So this whole providence of restoration is for Jesus. It's for the Messiah. And we saw, Mission of the Messiah, numerous lines of evidence that the cross was not the primary dispensation. It was not the primary will of God. Anytime I talk about the mission of the Messiah, I get pretty excited. But it's just so clear from the mission of the Messiah that, it's amazing the things that are written in the divine principle of, especially the mission of the Messiah. That's my favorite chapter, if you cannot already tell. I think you could, but it's incredible, the mission of the Messiah. And what it can really do, it can unite Jewish and Christian theology, because we see Jesus as the Messiah. He's definitely the Messiah, but we see the vast majority of messianic prophecy. And we see that this framework is more biblical. It's more scriptural of the mission of the Messiah. It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm sorry, but I kind of diverged here. So let's go back to the presentation. So God's purpose of creation is not only not for heaven to only be a place that you go after you die. Heaven is to be established by his children on earth through the accomplishment of the three great blessings. Once people complete their time on earth, they would move on to heaven in the spiritual realm for all of eternity. As Jesus said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right? It's supposed to come out on earth too. Jesus said that you should pray this thing every single day. Right? The disciples are asking him, how then shall we pray? And Jesus said that when you pray, pray then like this. And he gives the Lord's Prayer. Right? He's commanding every Christian to pray in like manner. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right? And we must have that same desire. Right? This is the very purpose for which the eternal, unchanging, and absolute God has been guiding his children throughout human history. And he will not stop until complete victory is won. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Providence and restoration is really exciting. And for me, what was really convincing for me to believe that Father was the Messiah was that mission of the Messiah. That was the primary one, honestly. But also providence and restoration, clearing up like these very confusing narratives, right? And also the problem of evil. The problem of evil is the greatest objection that God faces. Like, why would God have an evil world where there's tremendous suffering, war, disease, poverty, crime, and everything, disease, if God is a loving and good God? That seems to contradict or tip the scales in a way where it supports the atheistic worldview, right? And there are various defenses of or theodicies that New Testament age Christianity gives, and some of them are really good. But really, I think true Father, with the suffering of God and the providence of restoration, I think that it just answers it so clearly, and with the principle of creation too. It just answers it completely. It just makes so much sense, right? God did not originally desire a world in which this suffering takes place, right? That is why the Adamic theology is so important, because the fall was not a sort of a bad thing, but mostly a good thing, because Jesus could come. The divine incarnation of God could come. Because Adam is the first incarnation of the divine essence, the fall is not necessary for Jesus to come, the Messiah to come, or the incarnation of the divine essence to come. Therefore, God did not originally desire this fallen world. And therefore, it is completely in contradiction to God's original desire. Hello? So that's why Adamic theology is so important too. But those are my three primary ones. Obviously, there's other reasons, but Mission of the Messiah, for me, like, if you look at my channel, there's a lot of Mission of the Messiah videos. And there's a reason why. I did the most looking into it in my journey. That's why, that reflects that too. But it's just so clear from a scriptural standpoint that Jesus was not supposed to die. That was not, well, he was supposed, that was the secondary dispensation, right? The primary one was that Jesus, fulfilled the three great blessings, right? And we talked about that much more in depth in the Mission of the Messiah series, so you can check that out if you want. But yes, it is 33 or 35. I was going to talk about a question that but it kind of got derailed, of God growing. Does God grow? What the hell does that mean? Like, God growing? That just sounds so contradictory, right? And I was wondering this a lot too, and but we're out of time. I thought we would get through it pretty quickly, because we only had 7 slides to go through, and normally we cover like 20 or something. But I guess we are out of time. Maybe we'll cover it next week. Does God grow? And it just sounds really contradictory, right? Because God is traditional theology is that God is the perfect being. So, and growth implies, incompletion, right? And I don't think grow is the appropriate word, but anyways, I don't want to get into it here. We'll see you next time. Yes. I'm sorry. I kind of gave a trailer, but I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.